Hello everyone, I'm Vepikuno and I will be guest narrating this game between Altina and McMeghan in the CALLOUS Invitational 4 tournament. Now, before I go on with the game, I would like to show you the teams that these two players are using so that you have a better understanding of why these players made certain moves. So all this information is derived from just watching the replay, and Altina seems to be using this team with modest Zapdos, defensive Milotic, choice band Tyranitar, bulky Heracross, Dugtrio, and what seems to be a Wish CM Rachi. So we'll just note that for Altina, CM Rachi is his win condition in most games. Now for McMeghan, uh, now his team is pretty funky. It is a Tyranitar with low attack, and it has a Wish Toxic Jirachi, what seems to be a YOLO Scarm, interesting Toxic and Protect Pert, and a defensive Zapdos with a really whack set. Okay, so let's go on to the game. Okay, so McMeghan leads Tyranitar and Altina leads Zapdos. Altina the baton passes to Milotic, and Tyranitar does 25%. So most probably this is a Tyranitar that is either mixed or bulky because that's really low damage on Milotic. But because the damage of mixed Tyranitar with say like 12 attack EVs, it can't. I mean, it overlaps with bulky DD-Tar's rock slide damage. When I say bulky, I mean like maybe 64 EVs in attack. So it's not entirely possible to figure out what Tyranitar's set is here. So the fact that Zapdos has Baton Pass means that it's probably not a Curselax team. Now, Zapdos and Milotic are frequently featured on these McDoll Curselax teams, but those bulky Zaps usually run Roar because your remainders are like Magneton, Claydol, Dugtrio, which are super passive, and there's always the chance to set up on those guys. So what we have at the back for Altina instead is most likely a Sand team, I think. And it's probably going to be a balanced team given that it's Milotic. Okay, let's go to turn 2. So McMeghan goes to Jirachi and Altina uses Surf. And from the damage, actually, you can infer that McMeghan's Jirachi is HP invested but not special defense invested. So there are a couple of choices here. The most common choice would be Calm Mind plus Wish Jirachi. There's also Wish plus Toxic Jirachi, which appreciates the defense in favor of special defense, so that it can deal with like Swampert, it can stall Swampert out, stall DD Mans out, that kind of thing. Well, there's also the bulky Super Archie. Now, there's also Sub Rachi, but Sub Rachi is rare to send in on T2 because it's a sweeper. So I kind of bet that McMeghan would not use Calm Mind here because it's too early in the game with the threat of Tyranitar behind. I mean, it could be a CM spam, trading down checks with an early bulky Subarachi, but it's difficult for CM spam to lead Tyranitar because setting up Sand is not so important, but using Tyranitar makes you susceptible to like a bad lead men's matchup, for example. So it's probably not going to be a Super Archie. It's probably going to be some sort of bulky, more balanced Rachi. And even though McMeghan is not likely to CM over here, I think it's risky for Altina to keep Milotic in. For all you know, this could have like a Porygon 2 behind. So yeah, I think Altina on turn 3 is going to be safe and go to Tyranitar. Okay, and Jirachi uses Wish. So, uh, Altina sends in Choice Band Tyranitar, thinking McMeghan, if CM Wish might go for say a Thunder to try to induce paralysis, or if it was a funky Rachi set, with like hidden power fighting or whatever, um, you know, Choice Band Tyranitar can simply chunk Jirachi with EQ. Any other kind of Tyranitar, would basically give Jirachi a free turn, given that it's probably going to be really physically defensive. So, now Jirachi uses Toxic, and this is bad for Altina, but Altina's Tyranitar crits. Now, what does this mean? So actually, it suggests that we are looking at a balanced team from McMeghan because Tar's low attack. We have Toxic, Wish, Jirachi, and um, well, that is potentially a game-changing critical hit. It also hides the Tyranitar set. McMeghan is not able to figure out what whether it has a choice band, whether or not it's high attack, low attack, whatever. Um, so getting Skarmory in now is a no-brainer. But then you might ask, why did McMeghan not send Skarmory in directly on Milotic? The real reason, as we have pointed out in the team section, is that Skarm is a YOLO Skarm. But perhaps Altina could think that it was possible that McMeghan might have been scouting for Magneton, which is unlikely from the presence of Baton Pass Zap. Um, the whole reasoning about Roar being preferred earlier. But it's still early in the game, and it helps to be safe. So let's go on. Skarmory spikes, Zapdos comes in. Now, Zapdos is going to be really threatening here because McMeghan's special wall, which presumably is Jirachi, which acts as like a half check to Zapdos, is down. And Zapdos is getting a ton of mileage, we think. But McMeghan just goes plainly to Swampert. And Swampert is a pretty safe switch in because it's possible in this instance when McMeghan is down, he could try to land a Toxic on Zap with Skarmory to stall it out. Note that Skarmory's set isn't revealed yet. So Altina just goes for the safe Thunderbolt and now it's to Pert. But Altina has to play a kind of mind game. So from Altina's perspective, we're looking at T-Tar, Rachi, Skarm, Pert. Now, it's almost like a standard TSS Skarm Bliss team, but by replacing Bliss with Toxic Rachi, you create holes where you need to be a bit stronger against Zapdos and Suicune. So either McMeghan has his own Zapdos to trade, say, status and deal with Suicune, or McMeghan might be running an Aerodactyl, or both. So incidentally, Toxic Jirachi supports Aerodactyl quite well. So that's another argument in favor. But at this moment, it's a bit much to speculate. The game is still very tactical. Okay, so on turn 7, Altina mid-grounds by using Baton Pass. And clearly, Tyranitar now does not have leftovers. Landed a strong Earthquake though, so could it be DD? Could it be Choice Band? Well, given that Altina's sending it in so early, it's very likely that it's not a DD tar. I mean, apart from the obvious fact that it's getting toxic and there's no Lumberry over there. So McMeghan has probably figured out that this is likely a choice band Tyranitar. Um, and the question is, well, Roro protecting kind of means he's ahead now. And could Altina actually have seen that coming? Well, um, McMeghan's protect Zapdos really synchronizes very well with the toxic Rachi because one of Jirachi's biggest targets for toxic is Tyranitar, and Tyranitar loves coming in on Zapdos. So yeah, there's really good synergy there, but um, it's also not obvious that this Zapdos is going to have Protect because it could very well be an offensive Thunder Wave Zap, which is good for dealing with opposing Zapdoses and Gengars. That Rachi is not going to touch Gengar. And um, one would expect Roar to be very sensible as a last move, given that McMeghan has spikes. Thunder Wave isn't entirely anti-synergistic with anti-synergistic with Jirachi's Toxic, especially if Jirachi gets the Toxic on Tar first, because their targets are slightly different. Toxic from Jirachi, and Thunder Wave from Zapdos. Okay, so on turn 9, it feels like a prediction game. I mean, choice band mons are always prediction games, and both of them go for the safe move. So you really ask, when playing the prediction game, two main questions. One, does McMeghan value his Zapdos over Tyranitar gone? Because he could have just traded it, right? And does McMeghan have to take risks? So these two questions help us evaluate, the potential for, say, a double switch over there or a trade. Now, answer the first question, Roro does value his Zapdos for checking Zapdos and Milotic, especially if his last is not Aerodactyl. But if his last is Aerodactyl, then McMeghan still has to play a tricky game of navigating Altina's Rock Resist, which has not even taken any chip from Spikes yet. So the trade is unfavorable, and Altina's Tyranitar is going to give anyway to Toxic. So Roro doesn't have to take the risk here. I mean, it's not clear that Roro is down. Since he's one spike up, Tyranitar is as good as dead. And his full HP Tyranitar and Zapdos can still face Altina's Zapdos. So, yeah. Now, at the same time, Altina values his own Zapdos, because if it comes in, it threatens to KO something, and double switching Heracross in is not, if he does make a mistake and takes some serious damage from Zapdos, then it kind of nullifies Heracross's appeal, because part of its its awesome properties is its bulk. Its special bulk, which allows it to tank hits from full and dish damage back out. So at this point, I think it's perfectly reasonable for both of them to end up playing safe. Now, on turn 10, McMeghan roars to reveal Zapdos, and Roar Swampert is telling, because on McMeghan's team, which looks like it doesn't have Magneton, the Pert it's probably Surf. It's probably not Ice Beam, Earthquake, Roar. So it probably has Protect, given that this team seems to love abusing Toxic. So this signals to Altina that his Jirachi has a strong chance of winning if Tyranitar is removed. But now McMeghan can figure out Altina's team. So now let's look at Altina's last two mons, right? I think Dugtrio is strongly suggested, because Altina needs a rock resist, right? And it's going to be a steel or a ground type. Now, if it's steel, it's going to be Duck Weak with Hera, Tar, and the steel type. So one could hope for a Duck Revenge on Hera. Now, if it's a ground type, well, Swampert doesn't go well with Milotic, so I guess we can rule that out. And Claydol is not so sturdy as a Soul Rock resist. It likely wants Dugtrio. So um, Dugtrio also makes a lot of sense to check the opposing Heracrosses if Zapdos is the sole flying mon and Milotic is the temporary physical wall. Okay, sorry, what I meant was that if Milotic is used as a bulky water instead of something sturdy like Swampert, to prevent Tyranitar from just running over you, you would probably want a Dugtrio. Okay, so um, finally, actually, Dugtrio synergizes with Choice Band Tyranitar really well because Dugtrio removes the steals that allow Tyranitar to rain. Whereas whatever Duck can't remove, like Swampert and Claydol, well, Milo walls them instead. So all these clues are pointing towards Altina having a Dugtrio. And as a result, a Jirachi cleaner is highly suggested because looking at Altina's spikeless team, it has a couple of, breakers, Choice Band Tyranitar, Heracrosses, but no sweepers right now. So actually, something like Jirachi looks perfect for that. There are other setup sweepers you can consider, but you have to, at this point, rule out Dragon Dance Tyranitar, select Heracross, and doesn't have any support for Curse Legs. Suicune doesn't go well with Milo, so all clues are pointing towards Jirachi. So McMeghan at this point really needs to prioritize keeping Tyranitar alive. Okay, let's go to turn 11. Okay, so at turn 11, Altina can probably tell that McMeghan's Zapdos is defensive. Because, well, obviously from damage, and McMeghan can also tell that Altina's Zapdos is modest, I think. Yeah, so now Altina's Sex Zapdos, Altina's Sex Tyranitar, which is sensible because Tyranitar is not getting mileage against this Protect Spam team. Heracross comes in, and notice the speed tie here. That's quite interesting, right? Because, they're from a spectator's point of view, it's probably that both of them, you know, used a speed that's like just above Jolly Diditar, I guess. So interestingly, now both players at this point really value their Zapdos. Because it's the only thing on each other's team that has a move that can basically hit the other. Hit the opponent hard. So Altina evaluates that McMeghan will not risk Zapdos, and decides to focus punch on the next turn. Okay, and I mean, so from a spectator's point of view, this doesn't look like anything too strange, but McMeghan is actually running, as you'll see later on, YOLO Scarm, and Altina is running bulky Heracross. So this actually points to some kind of low HP, low attack interaction. Now, so both of them actually got information, even though from a spectator's point of view, didn't. And on turn 15, Altina, makes a rather questionable play. The question is, did Altina really have to risk Heracross there? Now, Altina learns that the Skarm is YOLO and the Hera is bulky, so going to Zapdos is actually pretty safe because the only significant thing Skarmory can do is apply a second layer for now, uh, and barring Roar, uh, you know, Altina is not too messed up right now. And if McMeghan doubles to Tyranitar, then while Altina goes to Zapdos, then going to Milotic basically nullifies McMeghan's progress. So McMeghan will have to make a triple switch to his own Zapdos to exert pressure, which is a risky and complicated sequence. Whereas by using Drill Peck, McMeghan can actually bring Zapdos into 2-hit KO range of his own defensive Zapdos. So, Drill Peck basically makes progress either way, and Altina most likely should have just gone to Zap over there. And now, I had a conversation with Altina. By this point, he told me that he recognized this team Roro used from SPL against Markop, and that the Tyranitar is Protect DDTAR, and the last is Gengar. And I guess this will shape the way he plays later on. So, yep, Zapdos comes in, and McMeghan goes to Swampert now. So I guess the question is, Altina is highly pressured to use Thunderbolt because McMeghan's Skarm has done its nominal job of just laying spikes. That's what YOLO Skarm usually does, right? It's just sack. But McMeghan expertly goes to Swampert again for the extra leftovers and mind games. And this highlights one of the problems with spikeless teams, that they're rather prediction reliant. The real question is, was that really necessary? Was that the pivot to Swampert really necessary, and was Skarm really useless? Actually, the answer is no, because should Altina's Zap go down under Toxic, right? Altina would have to rely on Milotic plus Jirachi to stonewall McMeghan's team. And then, in that case, Skarmory becomes really useful because Skarmory can spike on, say, Dugtrio, Altina's Dugtrio, and either taunt against his Milotic to prevent recovery, or if Jirachi comes in, then McMeghan just spikes twice to get 3 layers, and then it's completely unwinnable for Altina. So that would allow McMeghan's last to sweep comfortably, be it like Gengar or Aerodactyl. Okay, turn 17. Okay, so Altina and McMeghan make a trade. So Altina presses his game plan of weakening Pert for, I'm not entirely sure what. You see, I mean, if this Pert had, if this Pert had Earthquake, right? I mean, suppose it was a funky set like Roar, Protectless, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, Earthquake, or if McMeghan just decided to slap Roar and remove Hydro Pump, not fearing Skarmory, which still can be done, right? Then it would have been useful for Altina to HP Grass the Pert. The problem is that if this is just a monopert, then actually Jirachi can take it down. So this trade is not favorable to Altina. So it's highly difficult for Altina because with Zapdos effectively gone from Toxic and a Protect spam from McMeghan, uh, there's no easy way for Altina to apply pressure on Tyranitar for Jirachi sweep. Now there's the alternate line of going for Milotic, which might result in sacking Skarm for Zapdos to come in, and then it would be a game of Zapdos racing, because it would be uh, pivoting around Dark Rachi Zap. Um, you know, basically, on both teams you have a Zapdos and you have a ground type. So whoever and both ground types are able to apply pressure. So whoever stays late of the game is the one who gets those predictions right. Now, McMeghan is favored here because the pivoting ability is limited with spikes. Yeah, so I am not the biggest fan of that HP grass, trading HP grass for toxic over there. Nevertheless, Altina makes good use of it by going to Dugtrio, and this is a nice sequence, Dugtrio sequence for Altina. But it is actually the opposite of a blessing in disguise. And here's the reason. So, McMeghan sends Zapdos in, right? And now with Dugtrio losing momentum on Zapdos, Zapdos can basically Thunderbolt here infinitely so that Dugtrio runs out of Earthquakes. That means Altina is forced to switch. Now, if whatever Altina switches to, he is effectively revenge killed, or he loses much needed HP on Jirachi. So, indeed, Altina goes to Jirachi, right? And takes a huge chunk from Thunderbolt. Now, to me, if this is CM with Jirachi, this confirms that it's defensive Zapdos from the damage. But let's see. So I was saying it's the opposite of a blessing in disguise because now Jirachi, which is Altina's cleaner, now takes huge damage. And the alternative is actually sacking Zapdos, trying to double Dugtrio in on Tyranitar, sending Milotic in after Dugtrio dies, then sacking Milotic to Zapdos and going for the Rachi endgame straight out. So, yeah. Now, Altina goes for the Wish, and if you look at this McMeghan Zapdos set, Protect, Toxic, Thunderbolt, Roar, like you wouldn't have expected Roar. I mean, McMeghan already has two phases on, sorry, not two phases, but like Swampert as a phaser on his team. So you would kind of expect like HP Grass over there to deal with Pert. Wishing on Altina's part indicates that he was still clinging on to the dim hope that, say, Tyranitar is mixed so that he could burn the bulky Diditar. Yeah, okay, so like the Roar is not great for Altina. And now we see this Zapdos versus Zapdos interaction. Yup. Okay, so actually, Altina can still win here. What could have happened was Zapdos could be full parrot all the way. But otherwise, it's pretty difficult for Altina from here on because A good opportunity for Tyranitar to come in on something other than Milo is very likely going to result in a DD-tar plus cleaner sweep. That's assuming McMeghan really has DD-tar. And McMeghan can force that with Zapdos. So you know, if I mean, with short of that, right? Altina can actually still win here if he gets a bunch of Dugtrio reads right. Note that the Milotic at this point, it's actually still healthy enough to tank a +2 Rock Slide from DD-tar. Remember that the first Rock Slide did 25%. So it's not KOing Milo. So actually, for Altina, getting locked into Dugtrio's Rock Slide isn't necessarily bad. So Altina still has his outs to play here. Okay, let's go on. Yep, Altina is trying to be really aggressive with the Dugtrio here. And so let's see, Skarmory comes in. Now this Skarmory has done all that it can. Okay, so it has laid its second spikes. And what should Altina do here? So I think Altina should just surf, but Altina went for the Ice Beam. Okay, and I don't think that was I didn't like that. Now you see, McMeghan's last is probably a hovering Pokemon. So he doesn't really need Skarmory. At the same time, that Zapdos is paralyzed, and he's probably not going to risk the Zapdos there. Altina obviously can still win. It's all contingent on Zapdos not getting full parrot. Again, as I was saying, as long as as long as McMeghan's Zapdos does not die to Zapdos or Milotic, but rather to Rock Slide Dugtrio or Jirachi, Tyranitar can still set up. But short of that, right? I think it's endgame here because getting locked in. I mean, now, okay, as you will see, because McMeghan gets the extra chip on Altina from him switching it in on spikes and also from taking that drill pack damage, Tyranitar, especially at +2, is just going to break through Milotic now. It's not healthy enough. Yeah, so Altina really has to hex Tyranitar down to win. And so I think for the rest of this game, McMeghan simply just plays safe. It goes for the obvious Thunderbolt. And yep, it gets a full para. And Altina again tries to be aggressive. I mean, he kind of has to, right? Hoping to get the burn on Tyranitar. So actually, if you look at this here, you would think Altina actually dug himself out of a hole. Because if he does land the Thunderbolt on Tyranitar, then Dugtrio follows up. But McMeghan has Protect Tyranitar, so it's looking like it's looking like you know McMeghan wins. Okay, so this has been a really interesting game. I wouldn't have thought that anyone was clearly dominating. I mean, McMeghan always had small edges, but uh, due to how uh, full paralysis works, and the number of aggressive plays that can be made when you have Zapdos and the ground type, it was pretty nail biting all throughout the game, and I really enjoyed it.